So, my life so far, ever since I found out what a spiritual awakening was, has been a series of, there's so many ways I can say this, losing myself and then finding myself, or getting into alignment, then getting out of alignment, awakening, going back to sleep. I wanted to talk about the specific checkpoints that I went through to get out of my recent phase of losing myself, being in a resistance mode, to where I am now. I do want to start with how life was when I was in resistance. It's where life feels outside of your control. You're not able to be present because there's just this constant hum in the back of your head and you don't know what it is. And all you know is that you just want to ease the pain and you want to relax. So you do things that you think will make you feel good. And then all of a sudden it's time to go to sleep, and then you're staying up, and then now you have to wake up early to go to work tomorrow, and you wait for the day to end so you can get home, and then the cycle repeats. And that's kind of what my life looked like when I was in the resistant phase. It was hard for me to even consider believing in myself, because looking for stability and staying at a 9 to 5, looking for a career, something that I want to do forever, became normal to me. We'll get into that later. Let's get started. So what kind of sparked the start of my steps towards alignment was when I got my wisdom teeth taken out. Up until that point, felt like I was fighting against the clock constantly because they added more hours to my job. So I leave the house at 6:30 a.m. and I get home at 6:45 p.m. With that, I was trying to implement more fine-tuned workouts. I was trying to improve my diet, and I also wanted to get enough sleep. Those four things: going to work, working out, eating, and having enough sleep. It was just a constant tug of war between, like, what should I be prioritizing? Like, I want to improve how I feel and how I look, but I don't have enough time to. Like, I have to recover from hating my job and dreading going to work, and like, that's what my life was for months. Getting my wisdom teeth pulled, being forced to recover, to rest. Reminded me of the importance of slowing down. I had to physically be present with my body because I was actively recovering from surgery. I had to stop watching videos while I ate because I had to focus on the way that I chewed. And that in itself, forcing myself to be in these moments of silence because I had to, kind of parted the clouds a little bit and reintroduced that feeling of presence. And with presence comes peace. And so I hang on to that realization a little bit. I'm still trying to reach for the state of alignment, but it's just so far out of my reach. I started recording with a little camcorder. I was kind of doing that for 2 weeks, and retrospectively, it was very therapeutic because I was able to express anything that came to mind, anything that I thought was worth vocalizing. There were 3 things that I realized in doing this. First thing, I kind of introduced a technique of processing emotions. And I kind of introduced the importance of processing emotions. For so long, I was resisting my job, and I never processed it. And so I was stuck in a state of just constant subconscious and conscious resentment towards my job, and it was making my life miserable. And I realized that if I were to process these emotions, if I were to say my job makes me feel limited because it takes so much time away from my life, or I don't know, because it doesn't pay me enough for the amount of time that I put into it. It's all about time and money. Once I was able to put those feelings, those abstract feelings, into words, I was able to gain the sense of control. And upon further research, I guess there's a science to this, where unprocessed abstract emotions, they raise activity in the amygdala, and the amygdala, from what I know, is the survival part of your brain that causes, like I said in my last video, the dogs to bark, or for just you to act on impulse, or just it causes the physical sensation in your body, which I assume relates to like flight or fight. Then, when you vocalize or turn those feelings into words, turn the abstract into something more concrete, it shifts the activity from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical side of your brain, which is what caused me to feel more in control. Then I started realizing the importance of processing emotions, and yeah, that was a very helpful thing to learn that honestly has been a major stepping stone in feeling back into alignment. Another thing I learned or started learning or noticing was that reality is really shaped by your perception of it. You can experience the same day, but you can have different experiences based on how you perceive reality. That was another thing. The main thing, the main self-realization that came from recording myself with a little camcorder. I was on my way to work, and again, having these resistance feelings around my job and just not feeling good about having to do this every day. Being in a state where I was looking for a career and I was looking for stability so that I can buy a house and so I can save up for retirement and travel the world one day and one day feel the freedom. I asked myself this very important question. Is this what I really want to do? And I already knew the answer as soon as I asked it. And immediately I was just hit with this shock of like, oh my God. I started believing in someone else's truth. I completely forgot about my dreams, what I wanted in life, simply because everything opposite of it, was completely normal. I wasn't inviting into my experience. I wasn't exposing myself to anything that resembles my dream life of ease and creativity. And I started taking on and conforming to the norm of finding a stable career. And it was so just shocking to me because I never thought I would do that. Once that realization hit me, I was like, okay, let me stop resisting my job because this is obviously taking up so much energy and it's unnecessary. I could be using this energy towards something more important. And yeah, that's when I stopped resisting my job so much, because I remember that it's a temporary thing, that it's the main purpose for my job is to pay for my life. And it's not to fulfill me, which is kind of disheartening in itself, but that's a story for another day. Another checkpoint or whatever that I came across on my way to alignment was, I guess, discovering that I might be an empath, or at least be sensitive to external energy. What was that? I would just notice little things where I'd be, for example, sitting in the car with my dad, not talking at all, and start thinking about something that I've never considered before, and going into a whole thought spiral that's just not, I don't know. That was like the first kind of like hint to me. I was like, okay, never thought about this subject before this car ride, and I've never felt this way before, so why am I feeling this now? And I had a little inclination that it might be like I'm just feeling external energy, but I didn't really like put any much thought into it because, like, what do you mean? And then I would just like be more observant from that point on, and I noticed that like when certain people would walk into my space, I would automatically feel this wave of exhaustion, exhaustion and fatigue, where I wasn't feeling that 5 minutes prior. And the main point of that is not the whole feeling external energy. The main lesson that I learned from that is becoming aware of what is mine and what's not. What I want to allow into my psyche and what I don't want to identify with. I feel like that's kind of like an important lesson in general, because there's so much stuff. There's so much excess energy, conversations, feelings, concepts, complaints, judgments that aren't mine to embody. And the only thing that should be important to me is what contributes to me feeling good about myself, about my life, about the people that I love. Anything else does not belong in my space. And I feel like that was the most recent thing that I've been incorporating into my experience. I do want to make a separate video on just the things in general that I'm practicing, keeping in mind in a more aligned state that triggers more of an aligned state, because that could just be a whole another thing that I could talk about. I really just wanted to talk about the point A to point B journey, and there was something else I was going to say. Another important piece that wasn't really like a checkpoint or anything, but it was kind of just a soft realization. Throughout my resistant phase, I was honestly resistant to being in alignment on purpose, because my previous state of alignment, where I thought that I was in alignment, kind of led me down the wrong path, kind of disappointed me. I was being too literal, and I was starting to, I guess, take things at face value, started intending and expecting stuff, and expecting external reality to prove to me who I was. And that's where I went wrong. And yeah, I was in a phase of like feeling good and practicing peace and having this understanding of the world and the universe or whatever. And then life started calling for me, and it kind of pointed a mirror at me, like I was being delusional and I was so out of touch with reality. And that feeling is what kind of strayed me away from wanting to be in alignment again, because I didn't want to be delusional again. But that goes with what I said in one of my previous videos. Every time I lose myself, I get the opportunity to better, more accurately define the version of me that I want to be. And so with that, I feel that now I'm in a state of alignment again, and I'm back to myself. I'm back to being more present, feeling more at peace, feeling more relaxed throughout my day, processing my emotions as they come by, focusing on what excites me, learning how to actually manifest things. Seeing more angel numbers. I did not say that on purpose. That's another thing too. I mean, just a little like Easter egg. In my resistant phase, I stopped seeing triple digits on license plates on the time, on my mileage. Stopped seeing angel numbers, and I think literally starting last week, started seeing them a lot more often. And yeah, it's nice to know that that's like, I guess, confirmation. And it's not even, I guess there's a like a nerdle there's a neuroscience to this. Like, I don't know, I was trying to read the research papers on it, on how your brain recognizes patterns and has this internal timer and gives you the urge somehow to check the time when it's triple digits, because it likes seeing the same pattern. I try to read research papers on that. It's too confusing. They use two big words, and I'm just trying to enjoy the ride. I'm just trying to understand why scientifically I am seeing these numbers over and over again. But anyways, that's it.